hindsight is 2020. And I see it now. Every red flag, every backhanded compliment, every time he said I was just a housewife while I was building our future behind the scenes. Funny thing is, today, he's living in the house I bought with his mistress. But here's the kicker. He doesn't know I own it, and he's about to find out in the most satisfying way. Before we get there, though, let me take you back, because this isn't just a revenge story. It's a story about reclaiming dignity, rewriting narratives, and yes, learning to be the villain in someone else's fantasy. If you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or made to feel invisible, stick around. And hey, if this hits home, consider liking and subscribing. It keeps stories like this alive. It started on a Tuesday. A perfectly boring, cloudy Tuesday. I was folding laundry in our beige-colored bedroom, the one I'd repainted myself while 7 months pregnant. My back ached like hell, but I was used to it, used to doing things alone. Used to him coming home late, used to silence. He called out from downstairs, his voice already laced with irritation before he even saw me. "Did you pick up the dry cleaning?" I blinked. "No, you said you were going to, remember. On your way back from the gym." He groaned dramatically. "God, you're home all day. What do you even do?" My fingers clenched the towel I was folding. Not because it was the first time, because it was the 100th. He didn't wait for an answer. He never did. He walked out the door 5 minutes later, smelling like cologne that wasn't mine and texting someone who definitely wasn't me. That was the moment I realized. I was married to a man who saw me as furniture. I met Jake in college. He was charming, confident, and just the right amount of cocky to keep things exciting. I was majoring in accounting. He was doing business administration. We started as friends who weren't looking for anything serious. 2 months later, we were inseparable. By senior year, I was already doing internships, picking up freelance bookkeeping gigs, stacking every dollar I made. Jake. He was dreaming big. Startups, tech, fast money. I just need one big break, he used to say. He got his first break after graduation, a job at a mid-sized firm. I got one too. We moved in together. Split rent, bills, responsibilities. It felt like a team, but things changed fast after we got married. It started with, "Babe, you don't have to work so hard. I got us now. Then why don't you take a break for a while?" Enjoy being a wife. I didn't protest. Not at first. I thought it was sweet. Thought he was proud to provide. I let my freelance gigs die out. I stopped applying for full-time jobs. I stayed home, cooked, cleaned, decorated, built a Pinterest-worthy home. And somewhere along the way, I became invisible. He started calling me just a housewife like it was an insult. Like my work didn't count because it wasn't paid. Like I didn't build this life with him brick by brick. The final crack came on our 9th anniversary. He forgot. Not a card, not a text, not even a mention. I'd made his favorite dinner. I wore the red dress he once said made me look like his dream girl. I lit candles. He came home late, drunk, and called me Melissa. My name's not Melissa. I didn't say anything that night. I cleaned up the untouched dinner. I blew out the candles. And I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, calculating. The next morning, I opened a new checking account. Over the next few months, I started rebuilding myself. Quietly, carefully. I took online classes under a fake name, brushed up on my accounting skills, started freelancing again. By the time he noticed I was spending less time at home, I told him I was volunteering at the local shelter. He laughed. "So wholesome. That's why I married you." "No, you married me because you thought I was someone who wouldn't fight back." I reactivated my old contacts, started helping small businesses manage their books. Word spread. Work came in. I was making money again. Good money. He never noticed. Or maybe he did, but he didn't care. Until one day he came home with a new car. One we hadn't talked about. One we couldn't afford on just his salary. "Babe, you don't have to worry about finances," he said, waving his hand. "I got us." I smiled. "Of course you do." That night, I applied for a mortgage. in my name only. The house was small but charming, a fixer-upper in a quiet neighborhood. I poured everything into it. Refinished floors, painted walls, added touches that made it mine. It was my backup plan, my just in case. But somewhere deep down, I knew. I knew the day was coming when I'd need it. And oh boy, did that day come faster than I expected. It started with late-night texts, then passwords changed, then weekend work trips that didn't make sense. One night I followed him. He wasn't going to the gym. He wasn't going to the office. He was going to Melissa. Yes, that Melissa, the one whose name he whispered in his sleep sometimes. The one he once said was just a friend from work. They were holding hands at a fancy restaurant, laughing, kissing, like we were nothing, like I was nothing. But I wasn't angry, I was ready. When he told me he wanted space a few weeks later, I didn't flinch. He said he needed time to find himself, that he thought we were growing apart. I told him he was right. I let him move out. He said he found a place through a friend, a cozy little rental, said it was perfect for him right now. He looked so smug, so free. I watched him drive off, humming some upbeat song, not realizing. He was moving into my house, the one I bought, the one under my name, the one he thought was owned by a friend of mine, and I let him. Because sometimes, the best revenge starts with a smile. I started noticing it with his phone. You know how, in the beginning, when you're still in love, or at least still hopeful, you overlook things. Like how your husband suddenly starts taking his phone into the bathroom. Or how he sets it face down on the table every time he's near you, like the screen might betray him. At first, I didn't let my thoughts run wild. I chalked it up to work stress. Maybe he had clients. Maybe he was finally serious about his job again. After all, I'd spent years carrying the load so he could find himself. But I couldn't lie to myself for long. The truth is, my gut had started to whisper before my brain caught up. There were subtle changes. He started coming home later, nothing dramatic, just enough to be noticeable. 7, 15 became 8, 0, then 8. Became don't wait up. The excuses were clumsy. A networking event on a Monday night, a team dinner on Saturday, and then there was the cologne. He had never worn cologne before, not even on our anniversary dinners. Suddenly, he reeked of something spicy and unfamiliar. Not bad, just different. Too polished for a man who barely remembered to put on deodorant. I didn't say anything. I just started writing things down. I kept a little notebook tucked into my underwear drawer. Nothing fancy. Just dates, times, and lies. The kind of record you don't realize you'll need until you do. At that point, I wasn't planning revenge. I wasn't even planning an exit. I just needed proof for myself. I needed to know I wasn't crazy. And then came the text. It was a Wednesday night. He was in the shower, and for the first time in what felt like months, he left his phone on the kitchen counter. Unlocked. I didn't mean to look, I really didn't. But it buzzed, and I happened to be standing right there. I miss you already, baby. Your lips taste better than wine. I froze. Everything around me went still. The hum of the refrigerator. The sound of the water running upstairs. My own breath suspended in my throat. I didn't open the full message. I didn't have to. The preview was enough. Enough to detonate everything I'd been afraid to say out loud. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just shut down. When he came downstairs, towel around his waist, grinning like a man who thought he had the world on a leash, I smiled at him. I smiled. That's when I knew I was done being the clueless wife. I wasn't going to wait around to be humiliated. If he wanted to act like I didn't exist, I'd show him just how invisible I could be, right before I flipped the script. The next day, I told him I was going to visit my mother for a few days. He barely looked up from his phone when I said it. Cool, say hi for me. It was almost funny, the way he didn't even ask when I'd be back. Like I was a roommate, not a partner. Like my absence didn't disrupt his rhythm at all. That was his mistake. I didn't go to my mother S. I went to a lawyer. A friend of mine, Jessica, had been through a brutal divorce a year ago. Her ex left her for his assistant and tried to take the house, the car, and full custody of their dog. Jessica came out of it with everything, including the dog. So I called her and asked for her lawyer's name. That's how I met Hannah. Hannah was young, sharp, and didn't ask me if I was sure. She just listened, took notes, and when I finished telling her everything, about the phone, the cologne, the text, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "Let's get your house back." It took me a second. My house? She nodded. "You bought it, right?" I blinked. "Yes, but I mean, we're married, so." "No prenup." "No." "Then let's talk about how this house is going to be yours, not his. Officially. Before he finds out you're not stupid." That was the moment something clicked inside me. For years, I'd let myself believe that being a stay-at-home wife meant I had nothing. No assets, no power, no leverage. But that wasn't true. I paid the down payment on the house, with my savings from before the marriage. And even though the mortgage was technically in both our names, the title, the name on the deed was mine, just mine. He never bothered to check. He just assumed. It was like watching a door crack open. A shaft of light pouring in after years in a windowless room. I went home that night with a plan. No confrontation, no drama, just silence and strategy. The next few weeks were a quiet flurry of preparation. I opened a separate bank account in my name only. I started moving small amounts of money, $200 here, $500 there, from our joint account. Enough that he wouldn't notice. Enough that I'd be safe when it was time to go. I stopped asking questions. Stopped caring if he was late. I even started encouraging him to work late more often. He thought he'd won. One night, over dinner, I casually asked him if he ever thought about investing in real estate. He rolled his eyes and said, "I'd rather rent and keep things simple. Buying is for people who plan to stay." I smiled again. Inside, I was roaring. One night, Jessica and I sat in my car outside a Thai place, waiting for our takeout. She looked at me and said, "If you're gonna leave him, don't leave empty-handed." That stayed with me. Because for so long, I thought I had nothing to take. I thought I was leaving with just my dignity, and even that felt shredded. But now, I had more than I realized. I had a house, a lawyer, a record, a plan, and most of all, I had time. He didn't know I knew, and that ignorance was my weapon. But things took a turn. One Sunday, I came back from the grocery store to find a woman's lipstick on the guest bathroom sink. Not mine. A deep red I'd never worn in my life. The same color that lingered faintly on one of his mugs. He wasn't even trying anymore. That night, I sat on the floor of our bedroom in the dark, and I finally let myself cry. Not because of the betrayal, but because I'd wasted years building a life with someone who saw me as disposable. And still, I didn't confront him. I wiped my tears, stood up, and said to myself, "He wants a new life. Good. He'll get one. Just not the one he expects." 3 days later, I filed the paperwork to change the house deed into a rental property under a shell LLC. My lawyer helped me set it up. On paper, it looked like a random property management company had acquired the house and was allowing me to stay as a tenant for now. I made sure the mailing address was separate. He didn't even read the mail. The long game had begun. Let's get one thing clear. I didn't want revenge that looked like revenge. I wanted elegance, precision, the kind of quiet blow that doesn't hit until it's too late to duck. And I wanted him to walk right into it, thinking he was getting exactly what he wanted. So I gave him what he wanted. It started with a conversation over Chinese takeout. We were eating in front of the TV. Well, I was eating. He was scrolling on his phone like always, probably texting her. He made some offhand comment about how this house is too quiet lately. I took a bite of lo mein and shrugged. Well, maybe that's a sign. He looked up. A sign of what? I paused, set my chopsticks down slowly. That maybe we need space, time to figure things out. He blinked, suspicious but not enough to panic. You're saying you want a break. I'm saying maybe we've outgrown each other. The moment I said it, something shifted in his face. Like I'd read his mind and he didn't even have to do the dirty work. He leaned back and smiled. If that's what you want. There it was. The confirmation. He was already gone. Emotionally, mentally, probably physically on most nights too. He just needed me to make the move so he wouldn't have to be the bad guy. I told him I'd move out for a while. That I'd found a little condo through a family friend. Red, Jessica, and I'd be gone by the end of the week. He nodded, even helped me pack. I think he thought he was finally free. Free to parade his little affair into our bed without guilt. And oh, did he. I moved out on a Thursday. By Sunday, she was living there. Not officially, of course, but her toothbrush was in the master bathroom. Her perfume was on my pillow. And I'm 99% sure one of my silk robes mysteriously went missing. I didn't even care. Because what neither of them knew was that the lease agreement had already been drafted. The house had officially been transferred into the name of an LLC, one owned solely by me. The LLC had hired a property manager, a lovely guy named Felix, who handled all the paperwork. I gave Felix one job. Make it look like a standard rental process, nothing suspicious. So the following week, Felix sent a formal letter to the property. To whom it may concern. As part of our transition under new ownership, we're reaching out to current residents of address to confirm interest in remaining at the property under a formal lease agreement. Monthly rent will be $3,250, effective immediately, and includes basic maintenance and landscaping. Please respond by the end of the week if you wish to proceed with tenancy. I wish I could have seen his face when he read it. Instead, I got a text. Did you know the house got sold? Some property company sent a lease agreement. I waited a few hours before replying. Oh, weird. I guess I should have mentioned I transferred ownership before I left. Long story. But I'm not coming back, so if you want to stay, probably best to just sign it. I added a smiley face. He didn't respond. But he signed it. Of course he did. Where else was he going to go? He had just moved his side piece into the house. He thought he'd won. So every month, like clockwork, I got a direct deposit from my soon-to-be ex-husband for $3,250. Rent on the house I bought, on the life he thought he'd stolen. The best part, he told our mutual friends he had bought me out. That I'd agreed to move on. That he was doing me a favor by taking over the house and giving me space to find myself. I let him tell the story however he wanted. Let him play the benevolent ex-husband. Let him gloat in group chats. Let him look proud at barbecues. Because while he played landlord, I was the landlord. And he was paying me to sleep with someone else in my sheets. One night, Jessica and I sat at her kitchen island, sipping wine, and she asked, "Don't you want to tell him?" I thought about it. I really did. But something about him not knowing made it better. Like the longer he stayed in that fantasy, the harder it would hit when the truth finally landed. Because at some point, he'd find out. People talk. Mail shows up. Addresses connect. Eventually, he'd trace the LLC back to me. But I didn't need that to happen now. I was enjoying the long game. Meanwhile, I was thriving. I started working again. Freelance consulting. Nothing crazy, but enough to feel human again. Enough to have something that was mine. I went to therapy, started boxing classes, grew out my hair, and every month I saw that deposit hit my account and I smiled, because I'd done it. I'd turned his escape plan into my liberation. But like all stories, the peace didn't last. About 3 months after the lease was signed, he sent me a message. "We need to talk. Something S off with the paperwork. I got a notice from the county tax office addressed to you." I stared at the message for a long time. This was it. The unraveling. But instead of panicking, I took a deep breath and typed, "Oh yeah, I'm still the legal owner. The LLC is just a structure for management purposes. It's all above board. Don't worry, your rent's safe. Why didn't you tell me? You never asked." I didn't hear from him again for a while after that last text. I figured he needed time to process. I mean, Imagine realizing you've been renting your own victory. But if he was rattled, he didn't show it. On social media, they were thriving. Photos of brunches, matching hoodies, sunsets with wine glasses. She even captioned one, "Building our life from scratch red." I almost choked on my coffee. She wasn't building anything. She was moving into something I had laid the foundation for, literally. But I wasn't mad. Not anymore, because I knew something she didn't. Women like her never stop at winning the man. They want the house, the credit cards, the ring. They want the whole fairy tale, rewritten with them as the main character. And sure enough, within 6 weeks, she started making herself known. It started with an email. Not to me, no, she wasn't that bold yet. She emailed Felix, the property manager, asking about ownership options and whether the tenants had a pathway to purchase the home eventually. I was CC'd. Felix played it cool. "Thank you for your inquiry. At this time, the owner is not interested in selling. All tenants are under standard leasing agreements. Please refer to your lease terms regarding renewal and notice." She replied within the hour, "I understand. It's just that we're trying to plan long-term. This place feels like home." I bet it does. I could have shut it down then and there. But instead, I let her dream. Let her believe she was moving toward something permanent. Meanwhile, I started tightening things on my end, called my lawyer, updated the LLC's bylaws, made sure everything was locked down. And then I waited. I started hearing things from mutual friends, from my hairdresser even. Yes, gossip travels fast when you share a stylist. Apparently, she was pressuring him to propose. Not subtly either. Talking rings, baby names, dream weddings. At first, I thought, let her bury herself. But then something changed. I got a letter. A handwritten envelope addressed to me, maiden name, old address. Forwarded by a kind male clerk who must have had a sixth sense for drama. Inside was a note, in bubbly cursive writing. "Hey, I know this might seem strange, but I think we should talk, woman to woman. There are some things I think you deserve to know. L." I stared at it for a long time. Was this a trap, a manipulation, a guilt move? I took a breath. And I called Jessica. We met the next day at her place. I read her the note and she practically spit out her wine. "No, absolutely not, this is bait." I agreed, until curiosity got the better of me. Against my better judgment, I texted the number written on the back of the note. "This is her. I'm listening." She replied instantly. "Thank you, I feel like you deserve the truth. Can we meet?" I hesitated, then I said yes. We met at a cafe downtown. I chose the place. Neutral ground, public, and frankly, a little too expensive for her taste. She was younger than me, pretty in a polished, Instagram-ready kind of way. Designer bag, eyelash extensions, the whole look. She smiled nervously when she saw me. "Hi, thank you for coming." I nodded, didn't smile back. She jumped right in. "Look, I didn't know he was still with you when we met. He said you were separated, that it was over." I raised an eyebrow. "And you believed him?" She looked down. I wanted to. She fidgeted with her straw for a while, then said something that almost made me feel sorry for her. "He's different with me now. Cold, distracted. He talks about you more than he talks to me." I didn't respond, let the silence hang. Then she said it. "I think he's cheating on me." I nearly laughed, but I didn't, because I remembered what that felt like. She told me everything. How he had started staying out late. How he changed his phone passcode. How she found a receipt in his car for dinner for 2 on a night he said he was working. I asked her what she wanted from me. She said, "I don't know, maybe just closure, maybe revenge." I stared at her, then said, "You know he's paying me rent, right?" Her eyes widened. "Wait, you own the house?" I nodded. Calm, composed, she looked like she'd just seen a ghost. Suddenly, her fairy tale cracked. The walls of her princess tower collapsed, and I could see it, the realization that she wasn't the winner. She was just the next target. She asked me what I was going to do. I told her the truth. "Nothing, not yet. I'm going to let him keep digging. She blinked. That's it. I smiled. That's enough. That night, she moved out. She packed her things and left while he was at work. No note, no drama, just silence. And I waited. 3 days later, I got another text from him. Did you talk to her? She talked to me. She left. I know. He didn't reply after that, but I knew what was coming. He was alone now. No mistress, no partner, no clue, and he still thought he had control. He was still sleeping under the same roof I paid for, on sheets I bought, on top of a lease he didn't read. And every month he kept paying rent. It had been 4 months since I moved out, and in those 4 months I had watched him spiral. The social media posts slowed down. The parties stopped. The smiles faded. I wasn't stalking him, just observing. Friends would mention things. I'd see glimpses when we crossed paths at events or through shared circles. The mask was slipping, and underneath it he looked tired, hollow, a man without a story to tell. Meanwhile, I was living the opposite. I'd moved into a new apartment across town. Light-filled, quiet mine. My consulting work had picked up. I had clients, income, purpose. I even adopted a dog, a shaggy rescue mutt named Murphy with the same kind of wary, watchful eyes I'd once seen in the mirror. And for the first time in years, I was sleeping. Not just resting, but really sleeping. Deep, peaceful, dreamless sleep until the call came. It was 8:43 a.m. on a Wednesday. His number lit up my screen. I let it ring, then it rang again, and again. On the third time, I picked up. Hey. His voice was low, strained. Hi. Silence, then I need help. I said nothing. It's the house. Still silent. I'm behind on rent, work's been slow. I didn't want to say anything, but can we talk? Now that was Rich. The man who once told me I was just a housewife was now asking me for help paying my mortgage. I told him to meet me at a diner near the courthouse. Neutral ground. He showed up in the same gray hoodie he wore when we moved into the house 4 years earlier. It hung off him differently now. He looked older, not physically, but tired. Like life had started collecting interest on all the debts he never thought he'd have to pay. We sat in silence for a bit. I stirred my coffee. He picked at a napkin. I'm not asking for a handout, he finally said. I just need a break. Maybe you could waive a month or 2 or delay rent. I'll make it up. I looked him in the eye. You want me to give you a discount? He flinched just barely. I mean, not forever, just until things stabilize. I've got some interviews lined up. You know what the funniest part of all this is? I cut him off. You still think I owe you grace? He didn't respond. I leaned back. Let me remind you of something. When I was crying in that house, when I was cleaning vomit off the nursery wall at 3 a.m., while you were working late, you weren't offering me a break. When I cooked every meal, folded every shirt, and watched you lie to my face, you weren't asking if I was okay. He swallowed hard. You told me I was just a housewife, a woman with no real value, a placeholder while you figured yourself out. And now you want that same woman to lower your rent. He looked down. I wasn't finished. Here's the thing, I'm not angry anymore, not really. Because you gave me the best gift possible, freedom. And now you're asking to stay in that same freedom at a discount. He finally looked up. I get it, he said quietly. You hate me. No, I said. I just learned not to carry people who wouldn't crawl for me. Then I handed him an envelope. Inside was a printed document, 30-day notice to vacate. He stared at it for a long time. You're evicting me. No, I said. You're evicting yourself. You stopped being part of this story a long time ago. He didn't yell. He didn't beg. He just nodded, stood up, and left. The coffee was still warm when I took the last sip. Over the next 4 weeks, I watched him unravel one last time. First, the Instagram account went dark. Then his name disappeared from our old friend circles. Word got around that he'd moved in with a cousin across the city, that he was starting over. No one knew what had really happened. No one had to. Because I wasn't interested in humiliating him. I was interested in closure. 1 week after he moved out, I drove by the house. It was quiet, still. Mine again. I parked in the driveway, walked up to the front door, and unlocked it for the first time in months. The smell hit me, old cologne, faint perfume, dust. I walked room to room, each one echoing with memories. Good ones. Bad ones. Ones I no longer felt owned by. I stood in the kitchen, the one I once cried in while stirring spaghetti sauce, and I let out a long breath. Then I opened my phone and made the listing live. Charming 3-bedroom home. Recently renovated. Available immediately. Inquire for showing. Within an hour, I had 6 inquiries. The first night after he moved out, I stood in the driveway for a long time. Keys in my hand, motor running. The porch light flickered the way it always had since we bought the house. He promised he'd fix it, but never did. I hadn't set foot inside in months, and yet the place still smelled like memory. Like burnt coffee and stress. Like fake apologies and lavender candles I bought trying to keep things together. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe for something to feel different, but it didn't. It was just still and empty. The silence in that house was deafening. Not the kind of silence you get used to, the comforting kind, like Sunday mornings and soft blankets. No, this silence was hollow, echoing. A reminder that something had died here long before he packed his bags. I walked through the rooms slowly, running my fingers along the walls, remembering everything and nothing at the same time. Our bedroom still had faint outlines on the carpet from where our bed used to sit. The closet was emptier than I remembered, not because he took everything, but because I had already emotionally detached long before he left. The bathroom still had the scratch he made on the mirror frame when he tried to mount his electric toothbrush. He said he'd replace it. Never did. That was his pattern. Start things, forget them, expect me to finish. Only this time, I wasn't cleaning up the mess. The next day, I came back with a plan. Rubber gloves, a speaker, trash bags, a bucket list of closure. I cleaned that house from top to bottom, not to prepare it for someone else, but to reclaim it. To scrub his fingerprints from the walls. To banish the smell of betrayal from the sheets. I danced while vacuuming, sang badly while dusting. Even cried a little when I found the first ultrasound photo we'd tucked in the back of a drawer. We lost that baby early on. I never really let myself grieve. So I held the photo to my chest and whispered goodbye. Not just to the child I never met, but to the woman I was back then, desperate to make something work that never would. By evening, the place sparkled. And not the fake Pinterest sparkle either. The real kind. The kind that comes from elbow grease and letting go. I lit a candle in the middle of the living room floor. Sat cross-legged like I used to in college when I believed in manifestation. And I just breathed. No thoughts, no plans, no anger, just breath. And peace. The house sold fast. The market was hot, the location was perfect, and the listing, written by me, was honest but full of love. This home has seen joy and heartbreak. It's solid, warm, and ready for its next chapter. I had 6 offers in 2 days. Chose the one from a single mom with 2 kids. Felt right. At closing, when I signed the final papers and transferred the title, I didn't feel sad. I felt light, as if a weight I never realized I was carrying had finally been set down. With the money from the sale, I didn't go on a shopping spree. I paid off my car, took my mom to Portugal, her lifelong dream, and I started a scholarship fund in my grandmother's name for single moms returning to school. None of this was revenge. None of it was to prove anything. It was just living on my terms. It's funny what you start to notice when you're no longer surviving. Colors feel sharper. Food tastes better. Time moves slower in the best way. I started cooking again, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I took boxing classes, started writing short stories. I dyed my hair for the first time in years, burgundy, like I used to in college. Every little change felt like me reclaiming pieces of myself. I had handed over without even realizing it. I went to therapy, real therapy. Not just venting to friends over wine, but sitting down and unpacking the layers of shame, abandonment, guilt. I told my therapist how I sometimes still felt the urge to check his social media. She asked, "What would you gain from it?" And for the first time, I had no answer, because I didn't want to gain anything from him anymore. Forgiveness is such a complicated word. People kept asking if I forgave him, if I could. The truth, I don't know if I did. I didn't need to, because forgiveness implies I needed to keep a connection alive, even if just emotionally. But I didn't. I didn't want to be tethered to him in any way, not in love, not in hate, so I let it go, like a balloon I didn't even realize I was still holding. And once it was gone, silence. But this time, the good kind. Then one Sunday, it happened. I met someone, at a farmer's market of all places. How cliché, right? He was holding 2 jars of jam, raspberry and apricot, looking indecisive. He looked at me, dead serious, and said, "You look like someone who knows about jam. Which one?" I smiled. "Definitely raspberry." He grinned. "I knew you had good taste." We talked, walked a few stalls together. He bought both jams and asked for my number. We texted, met for coffee, then brunch, then a movie where we sat too close but didn't kiss. He was quiet, thoughtful, asked questions and actually listened. He didn't press, didn't rush, just showed up. And when I finally told him the story, about the house, the betrayal, the silent revenge, he didn't flinch. He just said, "Sounds like you won." And maybe I did. But the point wasn't winning. It was choosing. Choosing peace over performance. Healing over humiliation. Silence over screaming. Love, real love, not as a reward, but as a reminder that I deserved it all along. It showed up at 6:42 a.m., sandwiched between a coupon from Old Navy and a newsletter I never signed up for. Subject line, "Can we talk?" I stared at it like it was a ghost, and maybe it was. The version of him I'd buried months ago, resurrected in bold Arial font. I didn't open it, not out of fear, out of instinct. Because deep in my bones, I already knew nothing in that email would be for me. It would be for his guilt, his comfort, his attempt at redemption. And I had stopped being the caretaker of his feelings the moment I handed him that eviction notice. I left it unread for 3 days. Not once did I hover over the subject line. Not once did I fantasize about what it said. 3 months ago, I would have obsessed over it. But now, I had no desire to relive the damage in reverse. I spent those 3 days walking Murphy through the park, meal prepping for the week, helping a friend paint her apartment. I watered my herbs. I slept like a rock. And on the morning of day 4, I opened it. I've been thinking a lot. I don't expect forgiveness. I just miss talking to you. I understand if you're not interested, but if you are, maybe we could meet. That was it. 3 sentences, no apology, no ownership. Just a gentle knock on a door that no longer existed. I closed my laptop and looked around my apartment. Sunlight pouring through sheer curtains. The faint scent of sage from the night before. My vision bored in the corner with new goals, nothing to do with him. This life was mine now. No drama, no deception, no dependence. I had built a new ecosystem, one where my value wasn't defined by proximity to a man. And his email, it didn't shake that foundation, but it did offer something else, a reminder of how far I'd come. I agreed to meet, not because I wanted closure, but because I was curious to see what he looked like without the pedestal. I gave myself rules. 1 hour max, public place. No rehashing old wounds. No giving him anything to take home with him, not clarity, not comfort, not me. I didn't tell anyone except Jessica, who immediately said, "Please tell me you're going for the final scene of a movie, not the sequel." I smiled. This is the credits, nothing more. We met at the cafe, where his mistress had once begged for closure. I wore jeans and a navy sweater, comfortable, confident, no makeup except mascara. He stood when I arrived. I didn't smile. He looked older, thinner, the kind of weight loss that comes from shame, not self-care. His eyes searched my face for a reaction. He found none. I ordered a black coffee and sat down. We didn't waste time. "You look good," he said. "I am good." He started slow, how he'd been reflecting, how he realized he took me for granted, how things hadn't gone the way he thought they would. "I thought I knew what I wanted, but when you left, really left, I started to see." He trailed off. I waited. He cleared his throat. "I was stupid. I know I messed up. I don't expect you to say anything. I miss you." And finally, the ask. "Would you ever consider giving us another try?" I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't even smile. I simply breathed and said, "I think the part that hurts the most is that you still believe you're owed access to me." He blinked. "I'm not here for revenge," I said. "I'm not here to punish you. I'm here because I wanted to see what it looked like when the man who once called me invisible had to look me in the eye." He reached for his coffee. His hands shook. I kept going. "I survived you. I rebuilt. I became everything you said I couldn't be. And now you want to return, not because you love me, but because you finally see what I was worth." I stood, but I'm not available for rediscovery. I left him sitting there. Didn't finish my coffee, didn't look back. Outside, the air was crisp, fresh. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt weightless. Because the moment you no longer need someone to understand your pain is the moment you're finally free of them. That night, I opened my laptop and deleted his email. Not archived, deleted. Then I emptied the trash, watched the progress bar as if it were draining poison. It was. I closed the laptop, took a deep breath, and whispered out loud, "That chapter is closed." And this time I meant it. Jonah and I went upstate that weekend. A cabin, no phones, just us. He cooked pancakes on a cast iron skillet. I laughed when he dropped one on the floor. We played board games, built a fire, sat in comfortable silence. Not once did he ask about my ex. Not once did he make me feel like a project. He just asked, "Do you want another marshmallow?" That's when I realized, love doesn't need to be earned through suffering. On Sunday morning, I walked Murphy through the woods. Leaves crunched under my boots. Sunlight filtered through the trees. I paused by a quiet clearing and said out loud, "I'm proud of you." To myself, not for leaving, but for staying gone, for choosing peace even when chaos begged for attention, for becoming someone I actually liked waking up with. When we got back, I wrote myself a letter, not to the version of me now, but to her, to the girl who cried in the laundry room, who deleted texts instead of confronting the truth, who stayed longer than she should have, but loved deeper than she was loved. You didn't fail. You outgrew. You weren't too much. He was never enough. And now you're free, not because you ran, but because you rose. Thank you for surviving. I've got it from here. There's no ceremony for healing, no standing ovation, just quiet mornings, soft laughter, and the sound of your own breath. Finally not waiting for permission to exhale. And that's the real ending. The funny thing about endings is that they rarely feel like endings when you're in them. They feel like Tuesday mornings, like folding laundry, like chopping garlic for a dinner you're making just for yourself. No dramatic music, no final monologue, just stillness. Peace, I've learned, isn't something that arrives like a thunderclap. It's what's left when you stop inviting storms. And one day I looked around my life, my real, imperfect, beautiful, quiet life, and realized I wasn't surviving anymore. I was living. I didn't even know the moment it happened. I just noticed that I no longer flinched at certain songs, that I no longer had the urge to check if he'd watched my stories, that my reflection in the mirror didn't carry the ghost of who I used to be. And I smiled, not because I'd gotten revenge, but because I'd gotten free. My mornings look different now. I wake up before the sun, not because I'm anxious, but because I've learned to love the quiet before the world starts spinning. I walk Murphy while the sky is still the color of sleep. I drink my coffee on the balcony, even when it's cold. I don't scroll anymore. I read, I write, I breathe. And some days I don't think of him at all. Other days he shows up in a dream or in a smell or a song, and I let it pass. Not everything has to mean something. Some memories are just echoes. Jonah and I are still taking it slow, and I love that about him. There's no urgency, no pressure. He's never tried to fill the space my ex left behind. He built something new with me instead. We cook together. We talk about things that matter and things that don't. He knows how I like my eggs and when I need to be left alone. He never calls me too much. And I never feel like I'm shrinking to be loved. That is new. That is everything. I don't tell many people the full story, not because I'm ashamed, but because sometimes the details aren't as important as the outcome. And the outcome, I rebuilt. I own a new home now, smaller, simpler. But every corner holds only what I choose to keep. I consult for small, women-led businesses. I mentor 2 young girls who remind me of myself before I forgot who I was. And sometimes I sit alone in a bookstore cafe, journaling in silence, and I smile. Because the girl who once begged for love learned how to love herself, without condition, without apology, without asking for permission. The last time I saw him was in a grocery store parking lot, months ago. He was walking out with a small bag, looking tired, hoodie up, eyes distant. I saw him before he saw me, and when he did, he froze. I didn't. I smiled politely, nodded once, and walked past him. It wasn't cold. It wasn't performative. It was just done. And in his eyes, I saw it. The knowing that he could never touch me again, not because I hated him, but because I'd finally let him go. I've learned that healing isn't linear. Some days you feel powerful, untouchable. Other days you stare at the ceiling wondering if it was all your fault. But if you stay, if you breathe, if you keep choosing yourself, one day you wake up and the weight is gone. And the silence doesn't scare you anymore. It soothes you. It holds you. It becomes the home you never had. If I could tell the woman I used to be anything, it would be this. You are not hard to love. You were just asking it from someone who didn't know how to give it. Your softness is not a weakness. Your boundaries are not walls. And leaving isn't failure, it's returning. Returning to yourself, to your fire, to your joy, to your damn power.